And today is actually a very special episode. I have a story about how our special guest today, Cheryl Rice, came to Girls Night Live. Hopefully, I won't get too choked up with this, but how a chance encounter with a stranger connected me to her. A few years ago, I was taking flowers to my dad's grave, and the day was really dark and dreary. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a gentleman. He was the only person in sight that day, and he himself was bent over a headstone. It was really obvious the love and sadness that was just radiating out of him. In order to try to help him, I instinctively walked over and just handed him one of my flowers to put on what I later found out was his wife's headstone. Sometimes strongest messages come to us without any words at all. When he turned to look at me, the appreciation and warmth in his eyes is frankly something I will never forget. He walked away. A few minutes later, he came back and he handed me a card. The card said, I'm sure you can guess, "You matter." Again, words weren't needed at all. For the message that came between us was really loud and strong, but he told me really proudly about how his daughter started a movement, that it has gained so much steam that over 2 million of these cards have gone out around the world. I am here to tell you firsthand that something really simple, like giving a card to a stranger or someone you know with the words "you matter," really makes them feel like they do matter. So everybody that's here with us joining on Zoom, it's not too late to join us on Zoom. If you're listening by live stream, you can just go to our website and you can still sign up and join us. We'll receive 10 "You Matter" cards in the mail. But for today, it is my pleasure, and I genuinely mean my pleasure, to introduce you today's special guest, the founder and president of the You Matter Marathon, Cheryl Rice. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you, Shelley. What a gorgeous introduction, and probably the most unique introduction I've ever had, and quite special. And I want to actually follow up that beautiful story about the power of a chance encounter with a story of a powerful chance encounter of my own that really was the catalyst to the You Matter Marathon. So it was about 5 years ago, and I was in a giant supermarket in the checkout line, and I overheard a woman telling the cashier her recent struggles. She said her husband had just lost his job. Her son was battling addiction. She said, "I don't know how I'm going to make it through the holidays." And my heart ached. I wanted to help her, but I didn't know how. Should I offer to pay for her groceries or ask for her husband's resume? Honestly, I just froze in that moment and I didn't do anything. And maybe you can relate to that experience. It wasn't until I was in the parking lot and both she and I were returning our carts at the same time that I summoned my courage and I went up to her and I said, I couldn't help but overhear you're having a really hard time right now. I'm so sorry. I'd just like to give you something. And I gave her a You Matter card. And she started to cry. And she asked if we could hug. And we hugged. This was way pre-COVID. And then I went back to my car and I started to cry. And before I tell you how that chance encounter with a woman in a grocery store became a global movement, I want to ask you 2 questions, and I'd love you to put your answers in the chat. The first question is, why do you think that woman in the parking lot returning her cart at the grocery store started to cry when she received this card? I'd love your thoughts. What do you think happened? This is where we need the Jeopardy music. Do, 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 to see. Why do you think? Because of my kindness? Yes. Feeling valued? Absolutely. I think that's something she really needed to hear in that moment. She needed someone to empathize with her. It touched her heart deeply. Absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful, and so true. You cared. I cared, but I cared when I was in the grocery store, but I didn't do anything about it. She felt that I cared. It was what y'all are saying, the empathy, feeling valued and feeling seen, and truly feeling that her plight, her experience in that moment mattered, and that she was seen and she was heard. She felt small, unseen, insignificant under the weight of everything, and you reminded her that she mattered Couldn't have said it better than myself. Absolutely. And it brought her to tears. It brought her to tears in that moment. And so many of us, right? We walk around, it looks like we're just doing our grocery shopping or dropping our kids off at the bus stop, and we look together, but we never know what someone else is going through. And I was so fortunate to overhear that she was struggling. And I'm sure she doesn't say that to everyone, but she's doing her grocery shopping, feeling like she doesn't know how she's going to make it through the holidays. And then somebody stops, sees her, and gives her this message, and she just starts to weep. That's how powerful this message is. And that's just one of so many examples, and I'll give you some more examples and stories later about the impact of sharing this message via this card. So that was my first question. My second question, well, actually, let me just say a little bit more about that. I really believe, I know we're fighting many crises in our world today, but to me, the most fundamental crisis is a crisis of mattering. It's not just that woman in the grocery store. So many people are feeling marginalized, unseen, anxious, unsure of themselves. And we know the pandemic and the accompanying social ills of this country and the world that we're suffering from have only made things worse. Anxiety and depression are up, loneliness are up. If the pandemic taught us anything, it's how very much we need each other. And when we suffer from feelings of not belonging or not being enough, bad and sad things happen. Bad and sad things happen when people feel like they don't belong. And that's part of what this program is meant to remedy. To me, it's good medicine. Sharing cards, sharing this message is essential good medicine. So that's the first question, and kind of forms the basis of one of the purposes of sharing these cards throughout the world. My second question, because you guys aced that one, somebody gave me a You Matter card even before. The reason I had them in my pocket was because I had been given a You Matter card. It was a different design, but somebody gave me a card. And I'm wondering, I'm going to ask you to hypothesize, why do you think, for me, getting a You Matter card was so impactful that I had to order some for myself and start giving them away? What do you think was going on with me that gave me the impetus to start sharing cards? And again, I'd love to receive your comments and ideas in the chat. And you can be honest. What do you think was going on with me that made me really want to share this message or feel so impacted by this message? You were trying to help others? Absolutely. I was trying to help others for sure. Thank you, Amanda. The connection to what she's going through. Yes. You wanted to make a difference and spread kindness. Yes. Yes. All true. And I'm going to be even more forthcoming and tell you very honestly, the reason the card that I wanted to share it with others is because I could relate. I could relate to what it feels like to not believe in your bones that you matter. Yes, as a superwoman, we tend to put everyone else first. I imagine you needed to feel that pat on the back that makes all of your efforts worthwhile. Absolutely. Absolutely. I could relate to the feeling of being unseen, or what I call contingent mattering, believing that I mattered only if I was perfect, only if I got good grades, only if I got married and had kids, or only if I was a size 2. And I think a lot of women, frankly, are raised in a society that gives us messages every day telling us what we have to do and be and earn to feel like we matter. And that's part of the crisis to me. So I was vulnerable to that. In fact, long before I ever knew there was such a thing as a You Matter card, I wrote a book about my journey. Where have I been all my life? Because that's what I was living for a long time. I was so attuned to the needs of others and tuning into their needs and responding to their needs and thinking that I had to earn love and acceptance and belonging, through how well I took care of others, the disease to please, that I really lost sight of myself. How many of you, and you can just type a yes in the chat, can relate to some of that, what it's like to feel like you're currently learning this? Anna says, thank you for being brave enough to say that, Anna. Absolutely. It's an ongoing process. Good for you for starting that journey. Yes, 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 yes. So this concept of contingent mattering, believing that we matter only if we fulfill some external obligation or standard, can really put a burden on our well-being. So I think, frankly, that's why I was so moved when I got the card, because I'm like, oh my God, you're not asking anything of me. I just matter just because I'm me. And the answer, of course, is yes. But many of us don't know that. And so I believe we need to be reminded of that. And then you're right. I wanted to remind others of that because it felt so darn impactful. I felt like somebody just came right into my soul and gave my heart a hug from the inside out. That's how I felt when I first received the You Matter card. Yes. Yes, says Michelle. Thank you. So, okay. It's essential, before we get to the joy and the impetus to share these cards out into the world, I just want to say that we have to start with ourselves. You can't pour from an empty cup. So it's so vital that each of us learn how to remind ourselves that we matter, even if no one ever gives us a You Matter card or tells us or sends us a Hallmark card or remembers our birthdays. How do we learn to nourish ourselves? And this is the work for many of us of a lifetime. It's not a one and done, but there are some practices and pathways that I've come to learn. And in the work I do with women as a coach and speaker, I've come to learn that many women really have to cultivate these three pathways if they want to feel as strong and fulfilled within themselves as possible. And those pathways are self-care, self-talk, and self-kindness. And let me say now what I forgot to say at the beginning. If you want the slides that go with this, I didn't want slides to come between us today, but I have them. So at the end, I'll tell you how you can get the slides momentarily. Okay, so everything I say will be on slides and probably even more. Self-care, self-talk, and self-compassion. These are the fundamental elements to feeling as if we matter. And each of these elements has an accompanying practice or two. And because of our time today, I'm just going to give you one or two practices for each pathway. But they're things you can use tonight, which I feel good about. And I want you to feel good enough about to actually practice. How many of you, and just put a yes in the chat box, or you can raise your hand if you're on Zoom, have ever spent time this summer or during the pandemic gardening? Just raise your hand if you've ever gardened or bought a plant or received. Okay, I'm seeing hands. Yes, me too. One of my favorite things about receiving a plant is that, guess what? They come with care instructions. I love this. They come with care instructions. So I don't have to guess what my particular plant needs to bloom, not just to survive, but to actually bloom. Now, wouldn't it be cool if all of us came with a plant tag that said the kind of care and feeding each of us needed to be our best, most beautiful self? Well, alas, not yet. I'm sure Amazon is working on it. But so far, we have to discover this for ourselves. And let me tell you, if you're anything like me, this is also a journey, discovering what are the elements that really feed us, not just keep us alive, but keep us being our best selves. Keep us being our best selves. So I'd like you to think about some of the elements. If you were to write a plant tag for yourself, the things that you need to feel and be your best, to feel nourished and cared for, that you can actually give yourself, what would some of those elements be? I'll give you a couple examples, and then I want to hear from you. A couple things that would be on my plant tag: sleep. I need my 7 hours. And it sounds so cliche now. Sleep's getting a lot of attention. Sleep, sleep, sleep. We have to be protective of it. It's not enough just to say that that's a self-care item for me. It means I might have to set boundaries. I might have to ask my husband to turn the TV off at a certain time. I might need to forego my favorite TV show because I really need the sleep. So it means that once we identify some of these things that contribute to our self-care and well-being, we want to be protective of them, right? It's not just as simple as saying 7 hours of sleep. It's how am I going to give that to myself and know that I deserve it. I deserve it. Okay. I need to sing. I love it. I love it. Anna, maybe at the end you could sing for us. I love that. I need to sing. I won't dare do that for you because that wouldn't be kind. Louise from Facebook says, I need humor. Great, great, great. Okay, excellent. Meditate. Yes, yes, such great practices. Shonda, I need to meditate. Another meditator. Creative time. Absolutely. Again, it's knowing it and then honoring that, like giving it to yourself, making sure you create the boundaries, the time, know that you're worthy. And here's the thing, whether it comes to meditation or creative time, all these things, I just was working on this with a client. She said, I don't have 30 minutes a day to do her walking. I said, do you have 5 minutes? Can you commit to 5 minutes? There's no amount of investment in the things that you need to thrive that don't count. So even if you're going through a hard time in your life, you can do it. 5 minutes meditation, 5 minutes creative time, 5 minutes for a funny, humorous video. Pat from Instagram, I need hugs. Oh, yes. They say 7-second hugs a day. I know that might be challenging in times of COVID, but get vaccinated and get hugged. Dance and be social, beautiful. Okay. Oh, you just got a hug, Pat, from Anna. Anna, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Excellent. So 2 other quick things before I go on my list. This probably won't surprise a lot of you, but dark chocolate. And you know what? I had to really work to claim this. It used to be I would have dark chocolate, but I would sneak it. I would hide the bar and I would like sneak it when no one was looking. And I'm like, that's not self-care. That's like kind of self-abandonment. And now I have a little piece. I don't hide it. I savor it. And I tell myself I'm worth it. A little piece, and I kind of quell any guilt because this is endangered species chocolate. So I know some of the proceeds of this one are going to chimps, which feels good to me. So it's not just doing it, it's doing it and feeling good about it. Journaling, excellent. And lastly, and this might surprise you, I spend some time with 3 other women every Friday for the last 18 years from 8 to 9 a.m. on Fridays. 4 of us get together. One of us is now living out of town and we still get together and we have 1 hour together just to kind of download our lives, support each other. And that has become a vital and essential element in my self-care plan because I know these women have my back. I know I can be my unmasked, unguarded self with them. And that I really don't know where my life would be without that. So all of the self-care, it doesn't have to be solo. It can be some of dancing, can be social, excellent. So whatever you need, my point is claim it, name it and claim it. So that's practice number 1, self-care. The next one is about self-talk, okay? And when we're talking about self-talk, we are with ourselves 24/7. And as soon as we get up in the morning, most of us go into the bathroom, we look in the mirror, and the self-talk is happening. We're thinking either about what we need to do that day, what we didn't get done the day before, the gray hair we just found, the wrinkle on our face, the dialogue continues. And I'll tell you what, it's not always pretty. And women are so prone and vulnerable to looking at the flaws, the faults, the self-recrimination. And it is so essential that we learn how to get on our own side with our inner dialogue and to really be a champion to ourselves. And I'll give you one really quick example. A leader I worked with a few years ago had just gotten promoted. And I was meeting with her and I said, Mary, not her real name, I said, how did you celebrate your promotion? And she looks at me, she said, well, Cheryl, other than telling my husband, I haven't told anyone. And this was 2 weeks in. I said, you haven't told anyone? You haven't celebrated? She said, no. She said, it was a big promotion, well earned. Let me underscore. She said, if I tell them I was hired, I'm just going to have to tell them when I get fired. Imagine the impact of that self-talk, that belief that she was only there until she got fired. So you can imagine, how was she going to perform as a leader if she was just waiting to the day when she was found out? So that's a little bit of the imposter syndrome, which would make another lovely seminar. It's probably been done, but very worthwhile conversation to have. How do we kind of claim our gifts, claim our talents? And one of the ways we do that is by our self-talk. So in her case, one of the first pathways we utilized in our coaching was how to get a handle on her self-talk, so she could speak in ways that were actually enhancing, not diminishing her power and effectiveness, and how she felt about herself. Okay, you are so right. The morning mirror is painful. I have an antidote to that morning mirror I'm going to tell you about in one moment. So from my experience, it is so vital that we learn how to talk to ourselves in ways that are constructive. And the two ways you can do that are, first, become aware of your talk. It's so insidious. You know, again, we've been having conversation with ourselves for decades now. We have to become aware and ask yourself, what is the story I'm telling myself? Is it true? Or is it perhaps a form of fake news? And once we become aware of it, then of course we can control it and alter it. And back to that bathroom mirror, in this, I have a seminar from inner critic to inner champion. One of the things I give to the participants are these stickies. Hello, gorgeous. I tell them, put this on your bathroom mirror, put this on your laptop, put this on your dashboard. And it's a great reminder, or you know what, better yet, make your own, whatever word you want to hear that's just going to trigger you. Just trigger you to become aware of how you're talking to yourself and maybe change the channel when needed. So very vital, very, very vital. Okay. The third area that I want to talk about that can be a very, very powerful technique and practice for enhancing our own sense of mattering is self-compassion. Self-compassion, which is really, it's a combination of self-talk and self-care. And it's well, let me ask you, what does self-compassion mean? What does self-compassion mean to you all? What does it mean to be compassionate to yourself? I'd love a response or two in that chat box. Extending kindness with give to others, that you give to others to yourself. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Any other thoughts? You know, we're going to go with that one because it said so well. Allowing yourself to love you and others. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Allowing yourself to love you. Yes. Allowing it, giving yourself permission. And I would say making it kind of essential to love on yourself and give yourself that kindness and regard that you so easily give to others. This is so very vital, especially when we're suffering. And sometimes when we're suffering, some of us are even harder on ourselves. And that's so painful to even think about, right? So it's, how do you be kind to yourself in the ways that you naturally are to others, whether it be your children, your best friend, even your pets, right? I know my dog just went through a surgery and I was like reeking compassion for her, right? What would it be? But when I do something, sometimes I can be just so hard on myself, right? In a way I would never be with my dog. So vital that we learn to do this for ourselves. And I want to just give you two practices because a lot of people struggle with this self-compassion. It gets to be a buzzy word right now or a buzzy term, but how do we actually bring this to life? And two things that I've done that really make a difference, and I know certain clients have as well. One is find a baby picture of yourself, something under 10, ideally around between 4 and 6 years old. Find a baby picture of yourself and put it somewhere where you can see it regularly. And when you're struggling, you're having a hard day, look into the eyes of that child and love on her and talk to her. Because you know what? She's still there. You just rewind the days long enough, you're going to find her. And she needs your love and compassion. So sometimes a photo of yourself as a child is a wonderful prompt to kind of get you out of your head and into your heart. And you'll notice how naturally I just kind of gestured to my own heart, which is another technique. It's just, you can go be quiet, put your hand on your heart, or if you want to experiment, put your hand on your cheek, a really tender gesture, or even your hand on your belly. And that will soothe you and help get you breathing. And then you can start to talk to yourself in a sweet, kind, gentle way. And actually, there's been some research. There's a great book that came out last year, or maybe this year, by Ethan Kross called Chatter, Chatter, Chatter. And he's a researcher, I think, out of Michigan. And one of the things he has studied is the impact of chatter in our lives. And he found that when we use our names, when we talk to ourselves, we have an easier time expressing compassion for ourselves. So you could actually say, hey, Cheryl, I know you really wanted that job. I'm so proud of you for going for it, no matter what. I have your back. That's what we're talking about. In tone and words that are caring and loving and just what you would summon up for a friend or a child. Okay. Do any of you have other ideas on what you do to express compassion for yourself? I don't want to neglect to capitalize on the wonderful wisdom of all of you. So if there's anything else, we have just another moment before we transition to talking about sharing you matter with others. Any other suggestions for expressing self-compassion? Flowers. Oh my God. I love that. Flowers. Why not? Bring yourself flowers. That is beautiful. This is crazy, but I'm kind to myself. It's not crazy. It's delicious. I'd love to know what's your favorite ice cream. Oh, Shelly, you can tell us. Okay. Marjorie, what's your favorite ice cream? Yep. I can go there. Video journaling. We watch it and helps me get to know that's brilliant. Okay. I'm going to have to look into that. Thank you all. So I like that you have some ideas, and I would just encourage you to continue to cultivate them. And what I say is practice makes permanent, not perfect. We're not going for perfection. We're going for more permanent. So keep practicing them. I just want to read this one quote, and then we're going to move on to mattering to others. We must believe in our souls that we are somebody, that we are significant, that we are worthful. And we must walk the streets of life every day with this sense of dignity and this sense of somebodyness. That's by Colson Whitehead. He's the author of The Nickel Boys. So my rhetorical question to you, just to sum up mattering to self, is what would you do in the world if you knew in your bones that you mattered? And that's a question to meditate or journal or video journal on. Maybe at the end, we can talk about some of your responses to that. So let me now share how that experience in the grocery store became a global movement. I went to my car. I was so moved. As I said, I was starting to cry. And I realized in that moment, I can't be the only one. It's kind of like when you watch a TV show that you love and you want to tell your friends about it, or go to a new restaurant. You just can't keep it to yourself. I felt exactly like that with these cards. It was like, this is a secret that is too good. I want other people to know it. And quite honestly, I knew I couldn't give out cards to as many people who needed them. I couldn't do it. So I needed help. So I thought, what if we could give out 10,000 cards in the month of November to coincide with Thanksgiving, when at least people in the States, had more of a gratitude mentality. And I thought, okay, 10,000 cards. That seemed like a lot. And I knew that would take 333 people giving out 30 cards. And it was my father, actually, who said, Cheryl, if you're going to do this, you're going to have to send these cards for free. And I looked at him. I'm like, well, Dad, that would make me I'd have to become like an operational fulfillment center. He said, yeah, you will. So God bless my husband, because that first year or two, my dining room literally became the fulfillment center, where we packed and mailed out 30 cards for free to anyone who signed up in the world. And that first year, honest to goodness, I didn't think we could get to 333 people. I don't know that many people. Anyway, but I was blown away. And we had 14,000 people, and I think we're in 16 countries that first year. And the stories started coming in, and I was hooked. I was hooked. Yeah, it was amazing. All 50 states that first year. We got to 49 and we couldn't get Alaska. And I was like, I don't know anyone in Alaska. And I finally started cold calling Rotaries, schools, and I finally got to Sean Prince, the principal of a high school in, I think it was Fairbanks, Alaska. And God bless him. I just started babbling, you matter cards, they're free. Can you please sign up so we can have all 50 states? And He did. So every year we've been in 50 states, and we just got our 85th country, Indonesia, which is great. People sign up, they get cards as individuals, and we have groups like schools, nonprofit organizations, religious organizations sign up as well. Everyone gets 30 cards for free. If you need more, we tell you how you can either print or purchase the cards. A couple stories, and then we'll wrap it up. This really moved me. This was from the first year. A woman told me she had been estranged from her son, and he was recently released from prison. And she gave him a You Matter card when they reunited at the halfway house he was staying in. And it took him a moment to kind of get himself together. And then she said she saw tears in his eyes. And he said, you know what? This means so much to me. Do you have other cards I can give to the men I'm living with? And she said that this card was a gateway to a reconnection, reunion with him that needed to happen. I know there's pharmacists in New Zealand that came up with the idea of putting these cards in with the prescription medicine. So there was a group of caregivers that evidently that would come to get the medicine for their spouses who were ill. And so these cards would go not for the person who was ill, but for the caregivers. And they sent me a picture of them at this pharmacy in New Zealand. A friend of mine said, Cheryl, when I carry these cards, I feel like I have a superpower in my pocket. And I totally can relate to that, because you feel like at any minute, you know, you can change someone's life. And what I want to say is you are not in control of how people react. Some people react very strongly and they want to hug or cry, or they go like this, they can't talk. Other people, they just shake their head and say, thank you. It doesn't matter. I feel better. And this is as very much a twofer, because when you give cards, you are automatically, simultaneously reinforcing your own significance, which is part of the beauty of this. As is, it happens in most efforts that are volunteer-based. When we give, we get. And I have experienced that myself. And we call the people who participate yummies. And the yummies tell me, Cheryl, when I give these cards out, I feel better about myself. I see people differently. I see myself differently. And that's why they do this now year after year. It becomes a happy habit. We encourage people to give these cards out person to person. It can also be fun to leave them in places where you know people will see them, like library books that you return, or I leave them often when I fill up my tank at the gas station. I leave it in the card holder for the next person to find. And that just gives me a little buzz. Sometimes I'll go through our drive-through, and like a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through, and I'll pay for the person behind me and ask the person to put a card in, to give them a card with their order. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Y'all probably have better ideas than I do. This is incredible. It shows you that one person can sure make a difference. In North Dakota, yes, North Dakota, you can make a difference in North Dakota. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, the last thing I'll say, we've done research about the impact of giving out these cards. We did quantitative and qualitative research, and we know that people who give out a card a day feel happier, more grateful, more compassion for others, and more connection with others. So you don't have to take my word for it. I would love you to try it and let me know your own experience. Just going to read one thing, and then we can wrap up with the slide, and then I'll take any additional questions, comments, concerns. Okay, I got to breathe because this just gets me. This came today from somebody else, not connected with You Matter, but I just thought this is so beautiful. I wanted to share it with you. She said, we have to choose to be good. We have to make a decision and put forth effort to be the good again and again and again. To make a pledge to goodness, kindness, generosity, love, and care is a radical act in these times when so much that happens every day can so easily turn us toward rage, desperation, and despair. It is courageous to choose goodness. It takes so much strength, endurance, and passion to return to kindness, patience, love, and care each day. And this is what we were created to do, to choose goodness for the sake of each other. In this moment, may we stand together and support each other in choosing kindness, compassion, love, and care. And as we do, may we all feel creation rooting for us and offering their support and love. Rabbi Yao. Couldn't have said it better. So My last question to you, as I'm going to pull up a slide to let you know how you can get the slides of what I said, is who would you give your first You Matter card to and why? Put that in the chat while I share my screen. Okay, so now that I'm sharing my screen, I can't quite see the chat. I'm sure there's a way I can. But let me say this. I'm raffling off 3 copies of my book, Where Have I Been All My Life, to the first 3 people who text the word matter to this number on the screen, 1-833-229-7876. And you'll also receive the seminar slides. And you'll also, so if you want the seminar slides, text matter to that number. If you want to be included in the raffle, text matter to that number. Okay. So I am so grateful for your participation. You can learn more about the marathon at youmattermarathon.com. We send out cards all year long now. It's not just November. You can learn more about me and my business at CherylRiceLeadership.com. And I'm so grateful for your participation. And I just hope that you take this message to your heart and then share it from your heart to somebody else's. So thank you. You matter. Matt, I am